I think we are ready to start now. Welcome to everybody. Quite happy to have you all here in our Zoom meeting. And we have a very special guest. I'm very happy to introduce and to welcome Constanza Kalix, who is from the Goetheanum from Dornach, Switzerland. And Constanza Kalix has been born in Chile, and she grew up in Brazil. And she studied mathematics. And as far as I know, you also studied philosophy and did your PhD in philosophy about Cusanus. And Constanza has been a high school teacher in Sao Paulo for mathematics for almost 20 years. And then she came to Dornach and became the head of the youth section of the Goetheanum. She is member of the Goetheanum board. And now she is going to take over in 2022, January. She will be, together with Philipp Reubke, the head of the pedagogical section. So she can come back to her roots, being a Waldorf teacher, being in a Waldorf teacher training, and now being from January starting head of the pedagogical section of the Goetheanum. And we are very happy about that, having you at that position, Constanza, and very happy to have you here. And your talk today will be the human being as a being in becoming. And I'm very happy and looking forward to your talk, Constanza.
Thank you, Joost, for the invitation. It's an honor. Hello to everybody. Wherever you are. I saw that some people from Brazil is here. I will honor your presence in making a quotation in Portuguese at some point, but I will translate into English. And as Gilad from Israel said, he said in the beginning of his talk, well, me speaking English, I have to say the same. I want to apologize for my not very good English, but I think it will be possible to understand what I will bring because I have such a poor vocabulary in English that it makes it easy. So we have a very important theme, I think, for today, and this is the idea of the human being as a being in becoming. And I would like to try to address this topic from the perspective first in a historical situation that we are now, and then going to that what Rudolf Steiner brought as contribution for this huge challenge of working out of an understanding of the human being as the root, as the base for all our pedagogical deeds. And in a certain sense, it is always a very central question for education that we are in a field of tension. In a certain sense, it's a field of tension that remains and will remain in the root of the questions of education. And this is that our main tool for learning is to bring things that were already in the world before. In a certain sense, our main tools for the school contents are things that has been already in the world. So we can say we bring into the realm of education mostly the past. But the aim of education is to enable future. And to enable a future that we don't know, that we can't know now. And we, as teachers from the 21st century, we as teachers of this decade, we as teachers of this year, we know very deeply that we are preparing a future to come that we don't know how it will be. We don't know in a very deep and existential dimension how will be the world in 5 years, in 10 years, but also not in 1 year. And so we bring into the classroom, we bring to the children, we bring to the young people all that what in a certain sense has already been or is a heritage of the past. And this is what we have in our hands to prepare an unknown future. And with that, we are in the middle of our reality of coming into the world. Because each one of us, we arrived here in this world, we were born in a certain space, in a certain culture, in a certain language, and with the language, a certain, let's say, mindset, in a certain sense, ways of seeing the world, in a certain body, and that all was given to us. We arrive here and we are like that. And with that, what is in a certain sense a gift, but also maybe, a difficult gift sometimes to deal with, we want to go into our own individual future. And education is in a certain sense to make the task of make it possible to, coming from all this, what was already given, make a possibility or a bridge to all that what is as a potential in our presence when we are in front of the children in the class, when we are in front of the young people. And this potentiality is something that sometimes we can feel, but we can't describe it. How should I know as a high school teacher, if I am with my class 10, what these people that now are 15, 16 really has as their own path to be developed in this biography? I don't know that, but I am asked, or I am called to be responsible to form an environment that makes it possible to become reality, from the potentiality into reality. And so this tension field will be always, let's say so, our daily life. And nowadays, I think that all the teachers around the globe feel that in a very existential way. The difficulty to come with all that what is in our world today, and out of that to enable an unknown future, so that the also unknown intentions of the children and of the young people can be possibly fulfilled. And in this field of tension, we have nowadays our task to be responsible to make it possible for the young people and for the children to go into the world, to transform the world, and to be able to become themselves in this world in constant becoming. And I would like to start this topic now with some quotes from the last document published by the UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And maybe most of you may know that the UNESCO was founded in 1945, shaped out of the challenges after the Second World War. And they have as their main task to advance peace, sustainable development, and human rights. And I am quoting now, by facilitating collaboration and dialogue among nations. So they are really concerned. How can we foster, how can we enable peace? How can we enable development? How can we enable safe and healthy environments? And the UNESCO published in the last decades some documents regarding education. And they are wonderful, and I would really invite you all to read them. A wonderful document from 1996, where they describe what should be the columns for an education of the 21st century, I will not go into that document now. Then 2015, they published a next document, and this was before COVID, but it was in this moment of very deep concern already about the environment and very deep concern about the whole climate crisis. And this document of 2015 is named Rethinking Education Towards a Common Good with question mark. So we need to rethink education, looking around us and asking ourselves, how can we shape education towards a common good? And interesting enough, in 2021, few weeks ago, they published again a new document. And it's very interesting that in that 1996, we had this document, The Pillars for Education for the 21st Century, a wonderful document. Then, almost 20 years later, 2015, we have the next document where we need to look around us in the environmental questions, in the larger global social questions. And these pillars, they need to be, so to say, rethinked in the situation of the awareness of our global questions. And now, after 2015, 6 years later, a new document now, as I said, a few weeks before, and this document is named Reimagining Our Futures Together. Not rethinking education, but reimagining our futures together. And the subtitle is A New Social Contract for Education. So to imagine our common future together is not enough. We need to imagine, to reimagine, and then we need to go in action. And this action should be, this is the proposal, a new social contract for education. And it's very interesting that this is a report from this International Commission on the Futures of Education. And they are not saying how will be this contract, but they are saying all institutions around the world interested in education, all people, all teachers, we need to think, we need to reimagine our futures together, and out of that, to, in a certain sense, be able to shape a new social contract for education. So it's an urgency there, it's an urgency, it's a call. Out of this urgency, we need to reimagine our futures together. And I would like to read two little paragraphs from this document, and in the very end, all quotes will be together in a paper, then you can have access. Of course, this document of UNESCO is online, you can access it immediately. And I will read two little quotations. One is in the chapter, Reimagining Pedagogical Approaches. And here we will see the very beginning of that. When they start speaking or writing about pedagogical approaches, the first words are the following. Pedagogy is relational. Both teachers and learners are transformed through the pedagogical encounter as they learn from each other. The productive tension between simultaneous individual and collective transformation defines pedagogical encounters. Our inner lives influence our environments and at the same time are deeply affected by them. So pedagogy is relational. Both teachers and learners are transformed through the pedagogical encounter as they learn from each other. And this is deeply remarkable. This is deeply remarkable. Suddenly, education is not anymore a transmission of knowledge, But in the act of education, we have the relation. The relation is the base. Pedagogy is relational. So the relation is defining, is enabling, is fostering or not the pedagogical doing, the pedagogical deed, the education itself. And both teachers and learners are transformed through this pedagogical encounter as they learn from each other. This is the beginning in this document when they are speaking about pedagogical approaches. And this is really remarkable, as I said before. We will see that the idea that our mutual relation is the base for our existence more than only for learning and teaching, this is something that was developed through the 20th century. Steiner was one of the first of them who said that and who describes that and who wants to build the whole pedagogical approach out of this, of the reality of the relation, of the mutual relation, and many others through the 20th century will also think about that, will bring contributions from different points of view. I will quote some others a little bit later. And now in the 21st century, in this very harsh situation where we are now with education, in this document, a very public document, we can read that. This is the foundation, this is the ground for any pedagogical situation, for any pedagogical possibility, we could say. And a little bit later, well, and then we have in the very end, so this is, if you want to read the document, the link will be there, and it's on page 51. So, and then in the very end of this document on page 155, we can read the following. In this context of urgency, but also of great possibility, the ideas outlined in this report help us to reimagine our futures together and build a new social contract for education. This report is an invitation to think and to act together in building the futures of education together. It is a starting point, the beginning of a process of dialogue and co-construction. This report, like education itself, is not finished. On the contrary, its actualization begins now through the labors of educators around the world and those who work alongside them. I think this can speak to the heart of every teacher and every teacher in becoming and every teacher, former teacher. This is something that begins every day again. Education begins now. And it's up to us, and I will say up to us as contemporary society, to take this endeavor and to really say we want to do a social contract for education. That means to foster, to make it possible for every child to have the right fulfilled of learning the world with joy, of coming into the world, a world that is worth that we live in this world. And this is a big question. Are we convinced as adults, as those who are receiving the children in this world, are we convinced that it's worth to be here? Or are we a little bit concerned? Why are you also here? Hey, look around. What is the image that we carry with us of our reality around us? And with this image is connected the image that we have about the human being. Is the human being a being that we would love to introduce in a wonderful world fulfilled of human beings? Or would we like to protect our children and our young people from the human being? This is the discourse that we hear now around the world. The human being damaging nature, the human being destroying everything, and finally the human being to be replaced by something better that is not so damaging. And how would then the children be interested in that kind of world? How would they do their homework? How would they want to learn? Would you like to learn something where you all the time are hearing, actually, it's not worth being there? So when they say here in this document, in this context of urgency, I think that the urgency is very deep. What kind of picture we have? I'm not saying from the future, from our present day, today. What is the picture we all have, each one of us, about this day today? Would we like to share this picture with the children in our classes? So this idea that the human being is a being of relation is a very important one for the whole development of that, what Rudolf Steiner started 1907 and developed then through the years until in 1919, the first school was founded, and then it was, so to say, again, described specifically for the field of education. And this question about this essence of the human being as a being of relation is of huge importance for the daily relation with the child. So it's not a theoretical frame that lies beyond everything, but can be the ground for the work in everyday life, in the classroom, in the school, and larger than the school, in the educational field as the whole environment around the child. And essentially, what we will see is that Rudolf Steiner describes this I, this essence, this individual essence of the human being, the uniqueness, the singularity of each human being as this spiritual dimension. It's not changeable. It's not the same from one to the other. We are 7 billion different, really deeply different people. But not only different as different points, we become different out of the relation to each other and out of the relation to the world. So Rudolf Steiner describes the I not as an essence that is stable during the whole life, but we can say as an essential act of relation. As an essential act of relation with the others and with the world. And in this sense, the knowledge of the world is not something that will meet an indifferent I that is already there, but the relation to the world through knowing, through learning, will shape their own possibility to have this feeling of the self. In this sense, knowing is a participation, a real participation in the reality of the world and in the reality of their own becoming. And Rudolf Steiner describes that in many different ways through many years. This will be the ground for all the activities in school, the relation with the others, the relation with the teacher, with the parents, with the colleagues, the relation with the world, and the relation with the knowledge of the world, the understanding of the world is essentially this, so to say, is the ground for the becoming of the I. And also the I of the teacher will also be changed by the encounter with the child. It's not only one way, it's always a common participation. Of course, there is an asymmetry in the experience. we never should forget that it's not a symmetrical relation in all senses. It's symmetrical in the sense that we are all in becoming, and that my becoming will be changed by the meeting of the child in the same sense, differently of course, but in the same sense as the child will also become different through the meeting with me. But there is an asymmetry in the sense that I have as an adult experience, and the child will gain experience. So we have to place the asymmetry in the right place and not put it in the wrong place. As human beings, there is a total symmetry in the relation in between the teacher and the child or the young person. But if the teacher knows the same as the child about Julius Caesar, then we have a little problem. Well, maybe about Julius Caesar, maybe the child can know more. But if in all the fields of teaching, the children already know more than the teacher, or the teacher don't know anything, then we have a little problem. But in this sense, as human beings, is a total symmetric relation. And we will see that expressed in many different ways, as I said, during the 20th century. And I would like to quote here two different very important educators. One of them is a Brazilian, and he was born exactly 100 years ago. His name is Paulo Freire. You will find the quote there in this paper, and then you can go and find it also online because he is very well known. He's translated to many, many languages. And Paulo Freire speaks about the human being in becoming. We are all in becoming. And the recognition of the common relation out of this becoming is the ground for the teacher and learner and common learning situation. And he says that in a wonderful way, in many wonderful ways. And I want to read just one little quote. You will find it in the very end. In this paper, I put it in the original language in Portuguese and also in a free translation into English, but the book exists also translated to English. So I will read it first in Portuguese, if it's okay. Yeah, because there are some people from Brazil and I would like to honor Paulo Freire in Português. Se é dizendo a palavra com que, pronunciando o mundo, os homens o transformam, o diálogo se impõe como caminho pelo qual os homens ganham significação enquanto homens. Sempre sabendo que Paulo Freire usa homens e mulheres, né? Ele não está se referindo somente ao gênero masculino. Ele fala também sobre isso. Well, if it is by saying the word with which, by pronouncing the word, human being transform it, then dialogue imposes itself as the path by which the human being gains significance as human beings. I will read it again. If it is by saying the word with which, by pronouncing the word, the human being transformed it, then dialogue imposes itself as the path by which the human being gains his significance as human being. So in saying the word that will pronounce the world, so describing, knowing, the dialogue imposes itself as the path through that the human being can become a human being. And then another very important educator, very well known worldwide, Martin Buber, will also speak a lot about this reciprocity as the foundation of the reality of the human being. And he will say that in so beautiful manners. I will quote one here. You will find this book. Well, the book that I quoted, Paulo Freire, is The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. but you will find it there in the end. And this quote from Martin Buber is from the very well-known book, I and Thou. I will read it also in Portuguese first and then in English, if you don't mind. Just honoring the Brazilians here. Yeah. Quem está na relação participa de uma realidade, ou seja, de um ser que não está simplesmente nele e nem apenas fora dele. Toda realidade é uma atividade da qual participo sem apossar-me dela. Onde não há participação, não há realidade. O eu é real graças à sua participação na realidade e torna-se tanto mais real quanto mais completa é esta participação. Whoever is in the relation participates in a reality that is, in a being that is not simply in him and not only outside him. Every reality is an activity in which I participate without being able to take possession of it. Where there is no participation, there is no reality. The I is real thanks to its participation in reality. It becomes all. The more real, the more complete this participation is. The I is real thanks to its participation in reality. It becomes all the more real, the more complete this participation is. And so we can take that the I is an essence of reciprocity with the others and with the world as a thesis, a working thesis, not as a belief. We can experience that, I think, in many times, in many moments of our life, and we can take that also as a thought, as a thesis. What if it is like that? If it is really like that, that the I is an essence of participation, is essentially dialogical, is grounded in reciprocity, if it is like that, what that means for me in my profession as a teacher. If it is like that, it changes absolutely everything. And what if it is really like that and I am not changing the way I do things? And now I would like to describe some of the possible views that we can have on this topic of the I as an essence of relation if we look to the child in his growing, in his becoming. And the question will be, if I am, or if we are, as society, not only as school, but as parents, as all those who are responsible for the children, finally as society we have to say, but at least at school institution, if we are able to make it possible for the child to experience their own becoming in this mutual relation. And what do we need to foster that, to make that possible, to make that real in our everyday dealing as teachers in school with our children, with the students? And Rudolf Steiner will describe that very precisely, this becoming. And of course, always we can say, in a certain sense, in this sphere of imagining the child. Because finally, when I am in this situation, I am called to respond to a real situation. I am called to take my responsibility, and then I need to live all this and to be here in the presence of the child, in the presence of the situation, and to be able to know what to do. And so these descriptions are not directly saying, and now do that, but these descriptions that Rudolf Steiner gives about the human being in his transformation, in his becoming, are there for us to imagine, to have this field, this large field of the image of this human being, to be then left behind, I would say, and to make it possible for me in the presence of the situation to hopefully find the right acting, facing the fact that we are responsible. And in this sense, there is an asymmetric relation. The child is not responsible in that sense for my becoming, but I am co-responsible for that, what will be enabled for the child as a human being in becoming. And I would like to describe 3 moments. This is very common, and you are studying world of education, many of you, and you will, I mean, you know all that, and you have probably heard that so many times. I will try to describe it from a little different point of view. And it is this, that in the first years, when a child is born, there is an inner longing. There is a longing. And I would say this is given by the nature of the human being. All these longings that Steiner will describe, Rudolf Steiner will describe, are given longings by our own nature. And we could say maybe that the longing of a child, of a newborn child and a little child, and the children will never say that, they are not able to express that, but maybe we could describe this a longing to be desired, a longing to feel that there is a desire of my surrounding, that I am here, a longing of being wanted. The presence of the child is wanted, is affirmed. There is a surrounding, maybe one person, maybe 2 persons, maybe more persons, the whole family, or maybe not the family, but there are adults around who desires, who wants the child to be there. The presence is desired. And this experience of a desired presence of the child, that there is a will that the child is there, enables the child to feel it's the right place to be. And this feeling, of course, is not something that the child will think, but this is a body experience of being affirmed in the presence, in this physical bodily presence. And we know that it's not all the time easy when the child is born and is crying all the time, and the mother feels this, well, I need to learn to deal with that. And the big question is, will the child, every newborn child, find, and a little child, find situations, enough situations where this longing to be wanted can be fulfilled? Of course, the longing to be wanted, that our presence is desired, will never stop during our life. We will still remain on that as adults. We all know how weird it is. I mean, when we work in a school and we are talking to with a certain group and we feel clearly they don't want a math teacher to be, I was a math teacher, to be in this reunion here. My presence is not desired at all. So it's weird, even if we are adults. Maybe we can laugh about that if we understand the situation. But it's an existential thing. If we all the time would feel that our presence is not desired. And for the child, this little child, in the beginning of this physical becoming, also physical becoming is not only a soul becoming, is not only the becoming of this presence of the own identity, it's also physical becoming, the affirmation to be felt that this presence is desired is an existential thing. And the question to the society, to us as society is, can we offer the response to this longing? And this is all this period also of kindergarten. Do the environment is such an environment where the child can feel, can experience my presence is desired. And then in the growing of the child going to school, there is, I would say, a second longing, a very important longing that we also will never lose through our life. And there is a longing to be seen, to be perceived as this person, as this child that I am, in the way I am, to be perceived, not only to be affirmed, but to be perceived. Do I was perceived when I was in the class? Do I as teacher perceived all the 34 children? Do I saw all of them? Could the child feel that I perceive his presence? We all want to be seen, that there is a perception of us, that someone, at least someone, perceives I am here. And this is very important to fulfill the longing of perception. And if we think now on this COVID situation and so many children that couldn't go for more than a year, still children that are still not in presence in school in some countries, the big question is, how can we enable the child even so to feel perceived? Are we able, and I would say, what can we do to enable us to act in such a way that all the children will know they are perceived, their presence is perceived? And in this time, this is the school time, what the child will learn is to see the world, is to look to the world. And we will guide this seeing to the world, to this richness, to this diversity, to the beauty, to the ugliness, to this richness of reality, to learn to see. But the foundation, the ground for the soul of the child, to be able to look around and to see and to wonder all that what is around, is that someone is seeing me. Do I am seen when I see the world? And connected to that, we have so many questions. So many questions are now, through the COVID situation, as one of the examples, where we see also this challenge of the teachers. What is essential now? What is that what cannot be not fulfilled? And I would say we need to do whatever we can to the child to know the child is perceived. Maybe we can lose some contents through some months. I am a math teacher. I know if we are not doing lots of equations for a while, the world will not disappear. I mean, it's a pity if we are not doing equations, but it's okay. But it's not possible for the child to not be perceived. And whatever we can do, we need to do to fulfill this essential human longing in this becoming. And the becoming of the child in this whole period is deeply, deeply connected to the possibility to experience someone, at least someone sees me. Yeah, and then we could go one more step, and to when the child then is growing, there is a point where it's not only enough to be perceived, but there starts to be a longing to be recognized. That I am perceived, but also recognized in that what is my own this own essence, this own will, this own intention. And of course, who is able to look to someone else and to say, I know you, I recognize you? Fully, we can never do that, because the human being remains a mystery. It will remain, each person remains a mystery for all others. But we need to approach, we need to make it possible for the young person to experience recognition. Recognition in the intention, recognition in that what moves this young person, at least a little bit, at least in some moments. If a young person can't experience any recognition, it is very hard to relate to the world. And of course, again, recognition, to be recognized as this person that I am becoming, because I am not fulfilled. I am not just a math teacher. I am not just a woman. I'm not just from Brazil. This is also true. But many of the questions, I would say, many of our current questions of inclusion and exclusion are related to this realm of the recognition of this other human being. Yeah, so these three realms of the becoming with their own needs, the need or the longing to be wanted, the presence to be wanted, the presence to be desired, the need of this longing to be seen, to be acknowledged, and the need and the longing to be recognized. I would say that are three very big moments in this becoming from the early childhood into the adulthood. And whatever we can do for that as society is important, and whatever we miss will be of consequence. Hopefully not for the whole life, because every time again, we are able to recognize, to see, and to desire the presence of the other. And in this sense, I would say it's so good that we have a whole life, because many of these experiences can then become real maybe later. But if a little child would never experience that someone wants him to be there, if a young child would in school time never experience to be seen, and a young person would never experience to be recognized, this is something that harms the dignity of this human being. And so the awareness for this, I think, is a very essential awareness regarding this becoming of the human being. And I will quote now a beautiful thought from Eugen Rosenstock-Huessy, and he was a person who was very deeply connected to questions of adult education in the beginning of the 20th century. And he says, the individual human being only exists when he is looked at, addressed, and heard. Den einzelnen Menschen, in German, the original, den einzelnen Menschen gibt es erst, wenn angesehen, angesprochen und gehört wird. The individual human being only exists when he is looked at, addressed, and heard. Yeah, and I would like to go to this, 10 minutes, to go to an aspect of that very often in educational fields we avoid to speak about. And this is the aspect that this thesis, that the becoming of the human being is a becoming based on reciprocity and relation, this thesis embraces a high risk. because there is no way to ensure that we will succeed. We are always in an open risk situation. And this is why education is so important to be realized in a community of teachers, with the family or with the parents or with wherever adults are responsible for the child, because we need each other so that the risk is not too big, because there is always an open situation, there is a risk. And this, we could say, on one hand, is a weakness in education. But when we try to put this risk away and we just follow programs and we just make inputs, then this reality of the pedagogical act based on this relation is away, falls apart. And I would like to quote from a book, you will see it also there in the list. It's a book of an author that I also highly recommend you to read, Gerd Biesta. And this book is The Beautiful Risk of Education. And I will quote a little paragraph. This book is very beginning of the book, the prologue of the book. But it is for me so beautiful how openly he says what we were speaking before, in a certain sense, this risky situation. This book is about what many teachers know, but are increasingly being prevented from talking about, that education always involves a risk. The risk is not that teachers might fail because they are not sufficiently qualified. The risk is not that education might fail because it is not sufficiently based on scientific evidence. The risk is not that students might fail because they are not working hard enough or are lacking motivation. The risk is there because education is not about feeling a bug, but about lighting a fire. The risk is there because education is not an interaction between robots, but an encounter between human beings. The risk is there because students are not to be seen as objects to be molded and disciplined, but as subjects of action and responsibility. Yes, we do educate because we want results and because we want our students to learn and achieve. But that does not mean that an educational technology that is a situation in which there is a perfect match between input and output is either possible or desirable. And the reason for this lies in the simple fact that if we take the risk out of education, there is a real chance that we take out education altogether. So we need to face the risk of the relation. And it's not a risk that we just take once and then never more, but it's every day again. If we are really open to the child and to the young people as a being in becoming, every day the risk is given again. But every day the joy of meeting is also given again. Every day the potential of what can become is there in presence again. And maybe this is one of the things that if we want to fulfill that, the education is based on our relation to each other, to the world, to our capacity of knowing the world, maybe we need to learn to have the joy of this open situation, but not in a sense that we will not be prepared. The opposite, I would say, if we take this thesis seriously, that education is based on relation, the more we need to know the world, the more I need to know my topic, the more I need to to study and to enlarge my horizon of knowing, to have more possibilities to, in the moment, in the given moment, give this response, the response as responsibility for this becoming of the other, always full of risk, but always also full of joy, and hopefully remaining joy. Yeah, maybe so far. And Joost, you said you would now bring the possible questions for conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Constanza. That was wonderful, very encouraging. Thank you. Yes, we are open for questions right now. Maybe for all of you, Katharina is going to put the references and quotations into the chat so you can download them and have them for your own purpose. And furthermore, there will be the certificate of participation in the chat, and you can download it also. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen in the chat. Are there direct questions? Is someone saying thank you? And already someone said thank you for your wonderful, wise words. Martina, please.
Yes, so thank you as well. So when you speak about, you know, for the young child to have the urge to be desired, the presence to be desired, and then later to be seen, and then furthermore the recognition, I think. And I was wondering, you know, I had a couple of images came to my mind, like about how we meet the children, or later on teenagers maybe in school, and how the encounter might be, and on which levels this recognition might take place, whether it is a verbal recognition or a gesture, or maybe on a deeper level, so they just know they're being recognized. Maybe if you could say a little more about that. Maybe what the room looks like, the intention you put into it, or, you know, questions like that. I wonder if there is more behind it. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. It's a very, very big question, and there are, I think, different ways to approach. One, of course, will be that the ways of expressing in the adolescence and in this age of the young people, they express themselves sometimes differently as that what they want to express, and to have this generosity in looking to them. I think the recognition is also this trust that we just give them as a gift. I see now you are behaving in this way, maybe strange way, but there is more than that, this generosity of the trust in the becoming of the young person. Go for what you look for, this trust, and say, yes, go for that. And if we look as an example to this Fridays for Future and so on, it was a call to, do you trust this intention? And can we as society, but not in general, it's to, I trust in you, this girl, this person, this boy, or this, So really to recognize there is an intention, an individual intention that maybe is appearing in a different way, or in a way I wouldn't choose, or whatever, but this trust to say, go for what you search, this deep trust in the capacity of the young person to take care of their own destiny. This is one level. The other very important level of this is the relation to knowledge. So we are a society going through a big crisis in this sense, because as society, in a certain sense, we are giving the impression to the young people that knowing is not possible. We are so, we are full of suspicion. When someone affirms something, it could be, but it could also not be. This is okay that we are full of questions, but we in a certain sense, I think we lost the deep trust that if we really study and go through a process, I will understand what's going on. And this is the recognition of the possibility of the young person to know the world. I need to recognize that as a teacher. I know that you are able to understand. Maybe you need other persons to explain whatever. Maybe I'm not the right, and so on. Maybe we need to learn together new ways of it. But I know you are capable to know. And you, exactly you, this young person, and you, this young person, you are capable to know. And let's find out together what you need for that, to learn this mathematical exercise, to learn how, I don't know, how history in the 20th century turned to history in the 21st. I don't know what, but this, I recognize your capacity to understand the world, the recognition of the capacity of understanding. And practical recognition. Let's learn. And learning not as gaining new knowledge, but learning as an experience of the own capacity of approach the world, and the recognition of this capacity. In every day in school, you will learn logarithms. Not because logarithms themselves maybe are so important, but because you will experience yourself in learning this. And this skill that we all are able to develop through learning, this is an essential experience in this age, to learn that we can understand, to recognize the capacity of cognition. It's something very deeply connected to this experience of the self. And it's very important in that age that we enable them to have these experiences, because this is not an experience that you can offer as the experience to swim in a pool. I mean, you can just say, and here's the water, and just go, and you offer this. The thinking experience is an experience that can only be fulfilled by the person itself. And what the teacher can make is to make a good environment for that, of knowing. Yeah, but I don't know if this is a little answer. It's a big question, of course.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Constanza. Maybe a comment from my side. I think this is very important for me to see that too. You focused a bit more on the relational part of education, and this as the base of being open for an educational process. And now you focused a bit more on the question of knowledge and cognition and stuff like that. And of course, often Waldorf schools are blamed. They are almost everything is about relation and community. But in the end, the children have to learn something, and that the learning is not only something which has to be done too. So it's a task which has to be fulfilled because this is how schools are. But this is also part of the transformation of the individuality and the becoming of the individuality. So by going into a cognition process and developing skills in that direction, this also is part of the development of the human eye. And so it's not something, it's not an add-on, but it's really a crucial part of a good educational process to develop the cognition process.
Yes, thank you. Maybe I can add something because, yeah, as you said, thank you very much, Joost. I focused a lot on the relation, but I was not meaning only the interpersonal relation, but the relation to the world through knowledge.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Because this is very much important, because what we try to bring to the students as contents, subjects, and so on, this is, so to speak, the tool to develop oneself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the world is a place for our development, and to understand the world means to get a better understanding of ourselves too. And if the children and the young students find, you know, we of course, we all know that not every child has to every subject a good relation, especially you as a mathematics teachers might know that it's often a crucial point, you know. But if it fits, that the student can really get a grip and go into a subject and see what it means to the student to do something, and to really relate to a subject and to a topic and understand something better and deeper, that this is a very crucial point for a development of a student. And this is what Waldorf schools can do, that there are teachers who have their own clarified and deep relation to their own subject and can bring something to the students which helps them to have that kind of insight. Because in the end, when we find our profession and what students do as a profession in life, it's very often it is connected to a certain experience they have made in school. If they do biology or chemistry or physics or whatever, this is related to the experience to have understood something in that field. Yes, there's another aspect. It's coming from Kevin, because what you brought from Gerd Biesta, the question of the beautiful risk of education. Of course, we know there is a school system around us, which is all about standards and norms and examinations and having safety gear around us, and everything is regulated because we don't want to take the risk. And the situation in England we all know about is very much suffering by those regulations. And maybe Kevin, you can put your question in.
Yes, it's just to say that, sorry, I should put my video on as well. It's just to say that where you've got this heavy regulation, and it's about the pedagogical as much as it is about health and safety and things like that, where it might be far more justified. The whole emphasis is on, as has just been said, on standards and such like. So the risk factor is continually being taken away, and in fact, a teacher would be quite severely, or a school, I should say, would be quite severely penalised for allowing the teacher to take the risk. Now, that's the situation, but I just wondered if you had any further comments on how one could manage and deal with that sort of situation. You know, obviously, we can't be ridiculous about it, but I think there are things that one might be able to do, and I just wanted to hear what comments you had. Thank you, either way, for your talk. It was a wonderful one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Well, I was a Waldorf teacher. I was a teacher in Waldorf school, but I also was very much in contact with teachers trainings and young teachers who are not in Waldorf schools, and so working with with given and already regulated programs and so on. And I mean, the risk that I mean is not a high risk of dangerous risks. I am speaking about this open situation in knowing. And I would like to say two aspects. It's a little thing, but in this period of the school, of the first years of school, even if we have a given program, we can always, as teachers, bring situations where the child can experience the wonder. Can we bring situations in the classroom where the experience of the wonder is there? And this is a risky situation, in this sense, risk. You know, I don't know, but so that something is given in such a way that the child can experience this, you know, and this connects the child in a total different way to the topic, as if I just start speaking about that. So, of course, it can be a topic that is on the program. And it can even be described. First, I introduce this and then. But in doing, I think there is always space, as an example, for the deep experience of wonder. This is one little possibility. And this is what I name risk. I am not speaking about high risk or endangering risk. Of course not. It's this situation of openness, that the child can respond to something that appears. And we can also, as adults, experience this. How many times we experience wonder nowadays? We have the impression we already knew everything. And if something new came, then we try to fit it in something that we knew before. But the world is full of possibilities of wonder. So wonder, I would say, the experience of wonder every day, a little wonder, a new wonder, this wondering, this. And then for the upper school, I would say that even if we have very defined programs, and I can speak about mathematics, where normally the programs are very tight and very well described, what first and so on, always there is the possibility to bring a topic in such a way that there is the possibility to relate to a question. I would say that the experience of knowing through questions is central, is a central experience that the young people should have the possibility to be confronted with. And this is very deeply depending on the possibility of the teacher to evoke questions. So I can describe a topic, let's say, whatever topic that I, let's say, projective geometry or analytic geometry, yeah, so that I will learn to make to write an equation which can be expressed at this straight line, as an example. Of course, if I just bring it as a topic, there's no question that leads me to that. But even if I know that this is the topic I need to bring, I can, if I really know the topic, if I really know this, this theme, I can bring it in such a way that first there are questions connected to that. That there is a longing to know that. And I can tell you, it is possible also for very, very dry things in mathematics. Of course, sometimes you need to search a lot, but you will find a way of opening a certain desire by the students to go in touch with that, to have questions, to have this sensation, there is something that I want to relate to, even if there is a given program. Of course, the preparation and the knowledge of the teacher has to be big. And this is why we need to study and study a lot, also in Waldorf schools. But I would say that the wonder, as an example, and this possibility to formulate questions and to long to something that I perceive is there, but I still don't know. These are two things that are also possible if there is a given curricula. Yeah, maybe so.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Angela. Will you put your question yourself?
Yes, just was considering that in any sort of relationship or commitment, there will be a risk of some sort and the possibility of being hurt. And this must be the same for you. You have to commit to a degree, and depending on the amount of commitment, you must surely will be the amount of risk you take. I mean, I'm talking about a personal being hurt or rejected or all those sorts of things, not so much the physical risk, though they may be there as well. And but as you say again, there's always the joy of making it work if it does work. It's a comment more than a question, but there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in all relations, we are always, how to say, we never know before. I mean, as teachers, we all know years later, I mean, it happens all the time for me, because in high school, you have so many ex-students that a student came and say, and when I was in class 9 and this morning I was too late, then you said, yes, we will never know. I mean, we need as teachers to deal with the fact that we don't know, I mean, as human beings in general, but as teachers, we know that we don't know what will be the resonation of that, what we are doing in not only today, but maybe in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. And I used to say that in teachers training, if I am there knowing that whatever I do could have a consequence, suddenly you will stick and you don't do anything. And knowing that this will also have consequences, then you will never go to school. So the risk is also to say, yes, I am here, we are here together, and we will do the best out of that. So, yeah, but it's true. We go, the risk is given anyway. Yes.
Thank you. There's a wonderful observation by Job. Maybe you can bring this to us.
If I can explain it, thank you. I was listening to this quote by Paulo Freire, and this quote by speaking of saying the word, and I was thinking of children from, let's say, between 1 and 2 years old, when they are developing their speech. And then even when they start uttering and gibbering words for things, they can't find the right word for it, but pointing at things and uttering sounds, or then later maybe say, pointing at things and say, ball, 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 for instance. At that moment, that this relation to the outer world comes. That's the first thing. But when you give a name to something, it means that you have this distance between the outer world and yourself. That this relation comes at the moment this speech develops, and then in the second year, per day, I don't know how many words the children learn during the day to say, but it's all a preparation for that moment that there comes this real consciousness of this is the world and this is me. And then you have these two famous words. The first word is no, which is very important, and the other word is I. And I thought, well, there is the basis, the foundation for what Paulo Freire meant, this transforming the world. But at the same time, you develop yourself and you change in this relation to the outer world. I thought it was a wonderful quote. I didn't know it. Thank you for bringing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. So there are 2 new questions from Daniel about the question of the unchanging I and the, so to speak, changing I. Maybe you can put it yourself, Daniel.
Yes. So, yeah, I was very inspired by what you said about how the way in which we experience others and the way in which we experience the world influences the formation of our I and makes it grow. And in some ways, in my own understanding, I've really come to see the I as a part of us that accompanies us as an unchanging element through the journey of our life. So through the changing stages of who we are. there's somehow a presence that is there when we're a baby, there when we are 10, and there when we are 50. And I found what you said an incredible polarity to that understanding of the I. And I think it's for me, it's a very significant part in education is seeing that inner child, seeing that part of them that is accompanying them and will continue to accompany them. And I would just like to hear how they could possibly be reconciled, even though I'm aware that it's a very large question.
Yeah, this is a very big question because, thank you very much. I mean, the understanding of the I in the Western thinking is not this that I describe now. We can say that this description that is also what Steiner will, from the very in 1904 and so on in his book Theosophy, he would say the I takes his essence and his being from that which he is related to. So, and at the same time, a few lines before he says the I is the center of the soul. And then you could think, well, but the I is the center and the I gets his essence and his meaning from that which is related to. We see here is a new approach of the description of the I, and this understanding of the I as an eternal essence given and as a center of everything else and as a priority of experience and the otherness of the other as a secondary experience and so on. This is a result of a whole development through centuries in the Western culture. And this is why I said in the beginning, in the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, and during the whole 20th century, we have a new, I would say this is the big discovery, together with the discovery of the deshumanization that was never seen before as the 20th century could face. We have this 20th century having both, on one hand, the absolute deshumanization of the human being, or degradation of the humanity of the human being, and the discovery of the human being as a being of relation. And this is another approach, but this approach changes deeply the relation to the world and in the different working fields. And this is why Steiner also organized this School for Spiritual Science out of this understanding of our connection as the foundation of our being. And this understanding will change then things, how we do things in education, or how we do things regarding patients in medicine and so on. And yeah, maybe so far, but it's a deep question, how we understand the I. And also if we deny the existence of something that we can relate to this perception of the self. Yeah, it's a huge topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Constanza. Maybe one last question, which I think is very much important nowadays by Mangesh. And she considers that by what you said, we have this really appreciation of the human I, and we see the responsibility a teacher has. And this is something I always see in my own students, that going deeper into Waldorf education, going deeper into the understanding of the human being, the sense of responsibility is increasing. And by that, it can be a bit overwhelming. Can I really fulfill the expectations? Can I really be a class teacher? Can I really be, as long as you only fulfill standards and norms, it might be easy to just deliver your topic. It might be easy to be a teacher, just to say that. But with Waldorf education in the background, and which this kind of responsibility, there are many young Waldorf students becoming teacher students, and in the final years, they really they have doubts about their capacity to really fulfill the expectations, and to really fulfill not the expectations from outside, but their own expectations as a responsibility to be a teacher. Maybe you can say something about that.
Yes, I totally understand that, and it takes years, I think, sometimes for us as teachers, when we start being a teacher, to have the impression that maybe we know a little bit what we are doing. And I think that this, if we wouldn't have this little fear that we are not able, something would be maybe not right. Because who is capable, totally capable to fulfill this task of enabling the becoming of the other, this becoming that I don't know what it is? It remains, as I said in the beginning, it will remain a challenge. But it's the most beautiful challenge you could face. And what I can say is go for that. Mm-hmm. And don't expect at some point to lose it, to lose the consciousness of how big the task is. And if some teacher lose it at all and think, now I know, I would be careful. I would be careful. Who is able to know the other? The other, we are doing everything for the other to become, and the other remains a mystery. It needs to be impossible, but it's the most beautiful risk you could take. So I just want to say for each one of you that wants to become a teacher, do that, because it's the most beautiful thing, but it's a huge challenge. Yeah. So it's not an answer for the question.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we have to close our meeting here. Thank you so much for that wonderful and inspiring lecture, Constanza.
Thank you very much.
That was very nice to have you here. And we are really looking forward to be you the head of the pedagogical section, and maybe listen to other lectures you will provide for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you also for the initiative, Joost. I think it was a very important thing that you did in Alanus to enable people from so many places to come together in that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, next Tuesday we have a totally different topic. It's about science education, and we will hear Markus Lindholm from the Rudolf Steiner University College in Norway, in Norwegian professor, and from Oslo. And so we are looking forward to that science education lecture. And there will be another one about science education the Tuesday after that by Wilfried Sommer from the Teacher Training Center in Kassel. So we have 2 science lectures coming up. So I wish you a good day, a good night, and a good week. And we really hope in all your places that you can still have your students with you, that you can work, that you don't have to move your classes into online classes. It's a risky situation too in many countries, and we really hope we can do our pedagogical work. A good week for you, for everyone the best. Have a good day, and thank you again, Constanza.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Dankeschön.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Danke.